I walked out of the courthouse with nothing but the clothes I wore and a manila envelope full of papers declaring I'd officially lost it all. Callie had just taken our $3.4 million mansion, half my assets, and she wore a smile like she just won a game. As we stepped through the glass doors, she leaned close. For a second, I thought maybe she'd whisper something about our years together. Instead, she locked eyes with me and said, "You're pathetic." That single word hit harder than anything her lawyer threw at me. Then she left, arm in arm with Hank, my best friend since I was 20. He never even looked back. That night, I parked my truck behind a diner off Route 9, curled up in the driver's seat, and tried to make sense of where it all went wrong. Around midnight, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. A calm voice said, "Mr. Elridge, we've been trying to reach you for 15 years. This is the Gallon Private Banking Group in Zurich. You are the rightful heir to an account belonging to Roy Elridge, my Uncle Roy, missing for nearly 2 decades. Then the voice read off an account number and paused. "Mr. Elridge, the balance is $47 million. But before you celebrate, there's something you should know about how it got there. My name is Thomas Elridge. I'm 51 years old, and up until last year I thought my life was steady. Not rich, not glamorous, but solid. I'd spent 3 decades in construction, building homes, pouring foundations, earning every dollar with sweat and calloused hands. I believed in loyalty and family, in working hard and sleeping tired. I thought that was enough to hold a life together. Callie and I met as teenagers, married when I was 21. She had a spark in her that drew people in, and I fell fast. We started with nothing but a tiny apartment near Poughkeepsie, secondhand furniture, and big dreams. I took any job I could, roofing, framing, remodeling. She worked days at a diner, studied nursing at night. We were a team back then. We celebrated small victories like tax returns, bought a beat-up starter house, and poured ourselves into fixing it up. I worked until my fingers bled. She'd bring me lemonade and sit with me on the porch, talking about the future. Those were the best years. Eventually, I built my own crew. Bigger jobs came, then a city contract that changed everything. Suddenly, we weren't scraping by, we had real money. That's when I surprised her with a mansion. Not some flashy palace, but a classic brick estate in Westchester. Ivy climbing the walls, trees standing guard around it. 5 bedrooms, a wine cellar, a garden she swore she'd fill with lavender, but never did. It cost $3.4 million. I thought it was the dream. But after that, Callie changed. Country clubs, charity boards, wine tastings. Her life grew bigger, flashier. Mine stayed simple. Weekends with our daughter Brandy, now 23, smart as a whip and stubborn like me. Sundays with my mother, Eileen, who I'd bring over for dinner even though Callie didn't always like it. And Hank, my closest friend, closer than a brother. We'd built decks, hunted deer, shared beers under the stars. He was the man who stood with my mom at my father's funeral when I couldn't. I trusted him with my life. I should have seen it, but I didn't. Or maybe I refused to. Callie and Hank grew closer. Charity events, late nights. She said I worked too much, that I was always tired. I figured if I just kept pushing, she'd see how much I loved her. But the distance only grew. She slept in the guest room more often than not. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, haunted by how far we drifted from those porch-side nights. Uncle Roy once told me, "Never think a roof means safety. Sometimes it just keeps the truth from falling on your head." I never understood it until then. The collapse wasn't sudden. It was years of erosion, trust wearing thin like stone in a river. The breaking point came on a Thursday. I came home early from a Syracuse job, boots muddy, back aching, carrying her favorite cannoli as a peace offering. I thought maybe we'd sit outside and talk, maybe find a spark to hold on to. Hank's truck was in the driveway. Not unusual, but something felt off. The house was too still. I walked inside, heard laughter upstairs, her laugh, the one that used to be mine. I climbed the steps slowly, my gut already screaming the truth. I opened the bedroom door. There they were. My wife, my best friend. No shame, no panic, just silence. Hank scrambled for his shirt. Callie didn't flinch. She sat in the bed, crossed her legs, adjusted her hair, and said calmly, "You're early." Hank muttered something useless, but I wasn't listening. I turned and walked out. Didn't scream, didn't hit the wall. I just sat in the garage on a stack of plywood and stared at the floor. And in that silence, everything from the past few years suddenly made sense. The late nights, the forced smiles, the way she drifted for my daughter, for my mother, for me, it all added up. That night I slept in the guest room. The cannoli I brought home stayed untouched on the counter. By morning, it was in the trash. By afternoon, Callie had filed for divorce. There was no argument, no attempt at reconciliation. She was finished, and she wanted more than half of everything I had. I suggested we settle quietly. She laughed and told me, "You're the builder, not the brain. Let the court decide." Then she hired Donovan, one of the sharpest divorce lawyers in the state. Clean suit, perfect smile, eyes like a shark. In court, he tore me apart. Said I was unstable, that I had a temper. Twisted my life until it was unrecognizable. They painted me as a controlling workaholic who had neglected his wife. They dug up old lawsuits from subcontractors, subpoenaed financial records from my worst year during the recession, and spun it all into a story that made me look like a liar. I sat there in a suit that felt too tight, watching strangers dismantle my life piece by piece. Callie didn't shed a tear. She sat there in a black dress, hair pinned neat, legs crossed like she was attending a show. Even when Brandy testified, trying to defend me, trying to tell the court her mother had changed, Callie never once looked at her. After 9 grueling months, the ruling came down. The mansion was hers. Most of the savings hers. The retirement account split. What was left for me? My truck, my tools, and a bare little apartment I'd rented just so I wouldn't be on the street. I wasn't even angry. Just hollow. Like I'd been watching someone else's life get destroyed while I stood in the background. Outside the courthouse, Hank wasn't there. I figured he was already at the mansion, probably toasting with champagne in the crystal glasses I'd unpacked the day we moved in. Callie walked past with her lawyer, paused, leaned in, and whispered, "You're pathetic." Then she left. I didn't stop her. Didn't say a word. Just walked to the parking garage, climbed into my truck, and sat with my hands shaking on the wheel. In one sweep, I'd lost my wife, my best friend, my home, and 30 years of my life's work. But that night, everything shifted. I couldn't bring myself to face the sterile white walls of that empty apartment. Instead, I drove north with no plan, just a need to get away from the wreckage. Around 10 p.m., I pulled into a diner lot off Route 9 and shut off the engine. Leaned my head back, staring at the ceiling. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost let it go, thinking it was court business, or worse, Callie gloating. But something made me answer. A calm voice with a European accent asked, "Is this Thomas Elridge?" I hesitated. "Who's asking?" "Simon Keller, Gallon Private Banking Group, Zurich. We've been trying to reach you for several years. Are you related to Roy Elridge?" "Uncle Roy." I hadn't thought of him in years. My father's older brother, the outlier in a family of farmers and carpenters. The man who wore tailored suits, smoked Cuban cigars, handed me crisp $100 bills on birthdays, then disappeared again. He hadn't been seen since I was in my 20s. Rumor was he'd moved to Europe, made a fortune, and vanished. I cleared my throat. "Yeah, Roy was my uncle." "Why?" "Mr. Elridge, you are the sole beneficiary of a dormant account. By law, we had to wait before contacting you. Your uncle instructed us not to release it until you were no longer legally married." The words froze me. What kind of account are we talking about? As of this evening, the balance is $47,894,421.77. I stared at the dashboard like the numbers might appear there. My hands trembled. I could barely breathe. The banker continued. Roy had spent years funneling investments, private equities, old-world banking bonds into that account. Then he vanished. The money sat there, growing quietly for 15 years, shielded by legal barriers and silence. I asked why now? Why not sooner? The banker answered carefully. Your uncle was clear. He did not trust your spouse. His words, not mine. He left instructions. Tommy needs to be free before he remembers who he is. I sat there stunned. I remembered something Roy had told me when I was 16 on a fishing trip. Money's just a mirror, kid. It shows you what you're made of. Just make sure you know who you are when you see the reflection. I'd never forgotten that, even if I hadn't understood it until now. The banker's voice brought me back. We require your presence in Zurich to complete identification and paperwork. Travel and accommodations will be arranged at our expense. Once finalized, the funds can be transferred wherever you choose. I didn't give Keller an answer right away. I told him I needed time. He understood, gave me a direct number, and hung up. Afterward, I sat in the cab of my truck gripping the steering, like it was the last solid thing in my life. I looked up at the stars through the windshield. Somewhere out there, everything had just shifted, but I didn't feel powerful. I felt small, torn between two lives. The next morning, I called my mother and told her everything. She didn't sound surprised. She just said, "That man always knew more than he let on. Maybe now you can finally breathe." Brandy was the next call. She went quiet, then said, "Dad, you deserve this. But don't let it turn you into someone you're not." That afternoon, I booked a flight to Zurich. No hesitation. I packed a single duffel, 2 pairs of jeans, 3 shirts, my old leather wallet, and the watch my father gave me when I graduated. I didn't tell Callie. She didn't deserve to know. I didn't need revenge or a courtroom. I just needed to understand why Roy had left this for me. Zurich looked like a postcard when the plane landed. Clean streets, stone buildings, suits everywhere. A black Mercedes was waiting for me at arrivals. The driver held a sign with my name, gave me a nod, and drove me up a hill overlooking Lake Zurich. There, behind iron gates and gold letters, stood Gallon Private Banking. Inside, the air smelled of leather and polish. A quiet office like a library, with shelves of mahogany and a window view that could still your heart. Simon Keller, early 60s, greeted me with a warm smile and poured coffee. He slid a thick folder across the desk. Uncle Roy hadn't disappeared. He'd carefully removed himself from the American system. Sold everything, funneled investments into hidden trusts, layered through shell companies and old-world banking codes. Not illegal, but secret. In the folder were letters, handwritten, waiting for me all these years. "Tommy," one began, "I've watched you from afar. I saw how hard you worked. I saw the kind of man you became. I wanted to leave you not just money, but freedom. I couldn't do it while you were married to her. I never trusted her. I saw through her long before you did." Another was from when I was still a boy. "Tommy builds with his hands. He thinks with his heart. He'll be a better man than I ever was." I had to stop reading. My eyes burned. For years, I thought Roy had forgotten me. Turns out he'd been planning this the whole time. Keller explained the assets, cash, stocks, gold, even a villa in the south of France. All mine. My hand shook as I signed the release. And just like that, my life shifted again. But the truth is, it wasn't about the money. It was about what came next. When I flew home, I wasn't the same man. The bitterness from the divorce hadn't vanished, but it no longer owned me. For the first time in years, I felt grounded. Stripped down, yes, but real. The first call I made was to Brandy. She didn't ask for a dime. She just asked, "Does this mean you're coming home?" I told her yes. But home wasn't the cold apartment, and it sure as hell wasn't the mansion Callie now shared with Hank. I bought a ranch outside Nashville. Open fields, a wraparound porch, enough space for Brandy whenever she wanted. I built it with my own hands, the deck, the floors, even the windows. Every nail went in with intention. A week later, Callie called. Her voice was soft, the way it used to be. "Tom, I made a mistake. I never stopped loving you. We could try again." I let her speak, then told her the truth. "You didn't love me when I had everything. You love what I gave you. Now you want back because I'm worth more on paper. But I'm not the same man you left." She cried. I forgave her, but reminded her of what she whispered outside that courtroom. Pathetic. Then I hung up. Hank tried to. Left a message full of excuses. I deleted it without listening. I didn't need apologies. I didn't need revenge. I needed peace. And I found it. Roy's real gift wasn't the millions. It was clarity. He saw what I couldn't. He gave me the chance to rebuild, not just a house, but a life. Now, most mornings I wake before sunrise like I always have. But instead of rushing out the door with a thermos, I sit on my porch swing, coffee in hand, listening to the quiet. My house isn't flashy. Just a ranch with a gravel drive, an oak tree, and a creaky swing I built myself. That's all I need: peace, honesty, and silence without shame. Brandy visits often, brings her guitar, strums while I grill or sip coffee. She dreams of opening her own cafe. I offered her money. She refused. She wants to earn it herself. That's how I know she'll make it. She's got her mother's focus, my grit, and her own fire. My mother still lives in the house I grew up in. I tried to move her, but she said, "I have everything I need right here." And I finally understood you don't always need to move forward to grow. Sometimes standing still in the right place is enough. Callie never called again. Hank never showed up. Their lives are theirs to carry. Mine is finally mine. I bought a dog, a shepherd mix named Boone. He follows me everywhere. I volunteer at a veterans group, building ramps, decks, park benches. The work of my hands still matters, no matter how big my bank account gets. I also started the Elridge Grant, a foundation to help single fathers rebuild after divorce. I remember the nights sleeping in my truck, feeling invisible. No man should feel that alone. If I can help even one find his footing, then everything I lost and everything I gained will mean something greater. The biggest lesson I've learned is this: your worth isn't measured by what you lose or what you own. It's measured by what you can rebuild once everything's stripped away. Money didn't heal me. It didn't erase betrayal, but it gave me the freedom to remember who I am, and I won't waste a second of it. So if you've been broken, if someone left, if life took everything you thought to find you, remember this: there's a part of you no one can take. Find it, protect it, build around it. Let it lead you home. Thank you for listening. If this story resonated with you, do 3 things: like the video, share your story in the comments, and subscribe for what comes next. Because this isn't the end of my story. It's just the beginning of something better.